Hi guys, welcome to Style and Direction, a menswear podcast, but without the stuffiness. This is your host, Ethan Wong.
And I'm your host,
Light
Spencer
Yagami.
Roddy.
Oh, okay.
It's been a while since
It's been
we
a
recorded.
while.
I think we made this joke last time. It has been a while though, and there's a couple reasons.
Number one.
It's been a weird summer for Spencer. In between last episode and this episode, my house flooded and I got an internship at the OC Weekly, and those two things, they kind of take up a lot of your time. So for about a month, I was living in a hotel.
Yeah, and
without access to my recording equipment.
That's right.
And this is like my second day back in my house.
And with recording equipment.
With recording equipment.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you wouldn't hear me.
Yeah. Number two, I think we kind of ran out of guests for a little while.
Well, we have a big list. We just forgot to contact anybody.
Yeah, so hopefully, I mean, if this counts as like a season 2 thing, or after a little hiatus, we'll get back into it. We've got some other people that we want to talk to, and before we get too ahead of ourselves, we want to start doing movies. I think we talked about that the last time, where we want to start reviewing films that have great style or films that have kind of influenced us.
And today we're doing a movie that really influenced both of us.
Yep.
The Great Gatsby,
2013.
Directed by Baz Luhrmann, starring Leonardo DiCaprio, Tugboat, McGuire,
and Carey Mulligans.
Yeah, Carey's Mulligan.
Kind of like I was trying to do a golf joke, because Mulligans or Mulligan.
Bogey. That was my golf joke.
There you go. Yeah, and so this movie was. Let's talk a little bit about how it influenced us.
So this was right when I started getting into vintage stuff, or maybe like a couple months after. And at this time, I was specifically into maybe 60s vintage.
Because of Mad Men.
Yeah, kind of Mad Men. I don't think I actually had a lot of vintage. I had seersucker shirts from Kohl's, like an Arrow seersucker shirt that I wore all the time. I had just plaid short sleeve shirts that I were like, this is very 50s, stuff like that, where I didn't really know what I was talking about. But again, I was only interested in 50s and 60s looks. And then this movie came out and I was like, oh my God, maybe I should go earlier.
We got to go back to the
I have
future.
to go back. Mm-hmm.
How old were you during this time? This is 2013, 2012.
Let's do the math. That was 5 years ago. So I was probably 15 or 16.
Wow.
Yeah.
I was, I think, starting my second year of college.
Old boy.
Yeah, old sport.
Nice.
Yeah.
Well, because you weren't like the typical age of a
yeah, that's true. So I was about
college.
If you were 15, I was 16, 17 years old when I first heard about it. So yeah, I was 16 years old when I heard about it. And then it came out I think when I was 17.
Mm-hmm.
And I think I remember looking up 20s fashion at some point, and I saw on Wikipedia that there was going to be a new one starring Leonardo DiCaprio. And I'm like, oh, well, that's the Titanic guy. I really want to see this one. And then
Hi.
I got into Dapper Day.
My dad just came home, sorry.
What?
My dad just came home.
Nice.
I was saying hello to him.
Oh, cool. Hi. So I was getting into vintage at this time, so probably something like you, except I was always really into the 30s and 40s, or when in my head I thought it was 30s and 40s, whatever. And I think I never had a good example to show what my style was, because I wasn't really into the whole fedora thing, even though I wore fedoras. I'm like, there's gotta be
a better way,
a better way, or a cooler way. And then all of a sudden you see these stuff where Gatsby's wearing a brown suit, it looks slim or whatever, and I'm like, hey, that's vintage. I'm gonna do that. And so I was waiting for it to come out, and I made all my friends get dressed up to go watch it. And we didn't watch it, mind you, in LA where there's anything
parties,
special. Yeah,
cool
or
people.
whatever. Yeah. I watched it in my local Riverside theater. AMC
Oh boy.
Tyler Mall.
It's kind of weird thinking about how much of a cultural icon this movie was for a while and kind of still is, because it's like I was watching a TV commercial that was clearly in like based on this movie that came out, like the commercial like aired like last week.
What was
But
it?
it's like, yeah, it's like every high school, I think we had, like my high school had a Gatsby themed dance. Like everyone was doing Gatsby parties. I still, I still do tux rentals. I still get all the time people like, oh, we're going for a Gatsby theme.
Well, if you think about it, there's not a lot of like fashion like things that you can do that's
Mm-hmm.
like that you can do a party around. Like yeah, I mean I think after like Drive came out, a whole bunch of guys went as Ryan Gosling.
And got that fucking
The
jacket.
Secret John jacket, yeah,
Yeah.
and but they they do that for Halloween or something,
Mm-hmm.
But Gassy parties, like, oh, you could do a whole bunch. You could do like a birthday party. You could do a New Year's party. You could do fucking tea.
Yep.
You could do whatever you want. And I think that's what made it so popular. Is that like, hey, there's finally something that everyone's gonna see, and
Uh-huh.
it's probably also because Baz Luhrmann made the creative choice to make it not vintage.
Yeah, and that's something we should talk about, because when we're talking about the style, we're not going to be like, we're not going to nitpick. It's like, oh, here's how it's not 20s, because he wasn't trying to make it look like the actual 1920s. We're going to
Yeah,
be
yeah.
talking about the fashion strictly as it's presented. Just like we're not going through the lens of here's how it's wrong.
I mean, our
I
we
mean, we're
will
going to
have a
say
blog
here's how
post
some of
about
the
it.
stuff is
Yeah.
wrong, but it's just like, here's, you should never wear this for even if you're not trying to look vintage.
Right, right. I mean, and there's
Mm-hmm.
also going to be a blog post that will coincide with this, so you can see some of the pictures and some of the other stuff. And we will get a little bit more nitty gritty on that one. But
Yeah.
for the purposes of this review, we'll try and keep it light and more into like just what the characters are wearing as characters in the film.
And then what we think about that.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Did you have any other thoughts on like how it influenced? Because I had I turned 18 after it came out, and so I was like, even so, I guess I'm born in the summer, and Gatsby came out in the summer before that, so I kept the hype going for like a year, and then I had my 18th birthday was Gatsby themed, and I'll probably include some pictures in either the Instagram at Style and Direction or on the blog post and show you how bad it is. But like it's like a combination of like 20s through 40s, which is what it looked like in the film too, because like okay, we'll get into it later, but like at my party we had guys in like fedoras and boaters, double-breasted jackets. It was just a kind of a mix mash between eras, and it kind of translates to how when people think Gatsby, they just kind of put everything all together. Like they don't really think 1920s, or they say that, but that's not really what they mean, because it doesn't really translate well. You know?
Yeah. I mean, after this movie came out, like there was a lot of times where I'm like, I really want to do 20s looks, and I didn't really get much. I remember like I went to Banana Republic, and some big sale was going on, so I was able to get like a green shawl collar cardigan that I was like, oh my god, it's just like in the movie. And I wore that thing just all the time. I don't know where it is. I think I still have it. I mean, it's not bad. I might break it out in the fall again, but
I
that was like also like maybe like a year or two later after it came out, I got a shirt from the Brooks Brothers collection that was deeply discounted, and I wore it to my first Dapper Day. It was the white like pin collar shirt.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, I still have it. I lost the pin for it, and I haven't replaced it. Otherwise, I might wear it occasionally.
I I didn't get anything from the Gatsby thing, but I definitely a lot of my choices were from it. Like I tried
Mm-hmm.
to. Okay, so when I went to the part when it came out, when the film came out on like a Thursday night after class, I wore a Forever 21 linen jacket with Hollister chinos. So it's not a suit. It's just two things that are slightly cream and slightly white together.
Nice.
Yeah, it was bad. And then I think later on, when I turned 18 or near when I turned 18, I got like a white wool jacket with patch pockets from H&M, and then I wore that with white cotton trousers from
Well, because
Forever 21. And again,
you're
not a suit.
And your first Dapper Day was like a Gatsby inspired outfit, right? Or
Yeah,
was
yeah, it was. It
yeah.
was. I mean, it was just more like, oh, this is what I thought the 20s would look like. And I guess it's kind of close. I mean, it's like it was like a window pane suit with like a contrast vest and then a contrast collar shirt and a pin tie, rep stripe tie or something with a boater. And I wore boaters so much. Like
Yeah.
like that like the movie was like selling it on me. And I wore them with like jeans too. Like it's so bad, You try and make it like it's not like a fedora, where at least a fedora can be kind of worn with jeans.
Mm-hmm.
You can't really wear a boater with jeans. It's kind of just
You can't.
not.
It's really hard to wear a boater.
Yeah, yeah. So I mean, but that whole movie kind of got me into the whole menswear vintage thing because like after I started posting stuff from that, I think that's how I learned the term dandy because
Oh
I said
God.
like Gatsby was a dandy, whatever, and then I got into the whole Instagram thing, and then I learned about I am dandy. So like this movie in like 2013 was like the first like real seeds of like menswear for me.
Mm-hmm.
Instead of like, oh, growing up as a kid, you kind of like suits. Like, no, this was like, I'm actually gonna start wearing this shit.
Yeah.
And yeah, and now here we are talking about it and how looking back at it,
Who would have thunk?
Yeah, it's not that good of a movie though.
It's not. It's not a good movie. I own it on iTunes. I do not remember when I bought it, but like I remember watching it. Okay, so Ethan and I watched this movie together, maybe like last year or something. And
Yeah.
as we were watching it, I was like, "This is not good. Like, this is an incredibly corny movie." I do not really care for Baz Luhrmann as a filmmaker, and yeah, this movie, it's just so very, it's very
okay,
corny.
so let's talk about his creative choices before we go over the film. So again, like we said earlier, he didn't want to make this like a period accurate drama.
He and the costume director, whose name escapes me, but I
Catherine
think
Martin.
it's his wife, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So they both stated in several interviews that they do not want this movie to be quote unquote dated or anything like that. They wanted it to really appeal to a modern audience. So instead of having, like 1920s jazz music, they used electro swing because,
Kind of.
hip hop is kind of
The jazz
like,
of today.
yeah, exactly. It's what jazz was in 1922.
It's like
today.
what everyone was listening to.
Yeah. So and then the costumes, as we said, they're not meant to be strictly 1920s.
Yeah, because, okay, so I found an article where it said, like, oh, okay, so the book was written, like, 1921, takes place in 22, published in 25, and foreshadows the crash of 29. And so Baz and Catherine were like, let's just take everything from the whole decade, as inspiration for fashion. And then they looked at the archives from Brooks Brothers because... I would say Ernest Hemingway. That's not right. Who's the guy? F. Scott Fitzgerald.
Yep.
He he had Brooks Brothers sack suits, and so they're like, oh yeah.
Yeah, he was like a diehard Brooks Brothers boy.
Yeah, but the difference here is that he's like a trad, and not like a fucking dandy.
Yep.
And so I don't know where they got this inspiration for their clothes. I mean, again, we'll get into
because
it. But
it's weird because Brooks Brothers is like we have
we have
here's our
archives
archive.
of this stuff. Like
But not much looks like 1920s Brooks Brothers. Before we get too deep in the clothes, we should just go into like a quick plot synopsis.
Right. Okay.
So, yeah, it opens up with this kind of weird frame story.
Right.
Where
Nick is in a sanitarium, or I guess today it would be like a psychiatric ward or whatever.
He's morbidly alcoholic or something.
Oh yeah, they kind of pan down and like alcoholic, depressed, like anger.
Yeah, and it's snowing, and he's looking out the window, and the doctor's like, why are you so sad? And he's like, it's all because back then we were all so foolish, except for Gatsby.
You American fools.
He was the most hopeful man I've ever met. He was like a machine that measures earthquakes.
Oh yeah. Okay.
And a lot of this dialogue,
I haven't read the book in like years.
Yeah, neither have I. I think a lot of this dialogue does come from F. Scott Fitzgerald, so maybe not to shit on the great American novelist too much, but there's a chance if I read it today, I would be like,
This sounds dumb.
Calm down, F. Scott.
Yeah. Okay, so it goes like, so it kind of flashes back where it's like 1922. It's like the stock market was so good, prohibition
Alcohol was so
backfired
cheap,
because
yeah.
everyone was buying alcohol. It was so cheap, everyone had it, and I moved as soon as I finished college. I moved from wherever I was in the Midwest or something.
Well, he was a Yale man.
Yeah, but he's, I guess, from Chicago originally, right?
Oh yeah, he was from Chicago.
And so he moves. Yeah, he goes to school in Yale, so he's an Ivy guy, and then he moves to New York, and for some reason gets a cottage.
Yeah,
in
it's a cottage, like a groundskeeper's cottage.
Is he in West or East Egg?
He is in West Egg.
West Egg. So he's there, which is a weird thing. Okay, so yeah, it's a groundskeeper cottage, right? Like, they don't say that in the movie, by the way. They just
No, they do.
Oh, they do?
I think they said it's like, I was watching it earlier tonight, or at least part of it. They were like, a forgotten groundskeeper's little cottage.
Oh, so there you go. And then so I guess we can bring up outfits as they're doing this. So like, there's one really cheesy shot when he's doing his own narration, and like the camera goes to like this biplane flying around.
Oh yeah, yeah.
And then it kind of like, and then I guess the camera shifts to the view of the airplane. And it starts to do like a nosedive down the Empire State Building, and then it has like this thing where like Nick looks up at the camera and like takes off his boater,
and he's like, look at that New York
he's like,
skyline.
He's like, and there it was, New York City, and it's like, but he's wearing like a gray, like a herringbone suit, like a sack suit, and a boater.
Yeah, another thing we're gonna talk about a lot is no one has heard of summer clothes in this film, except for Gatsby.
Exactly. So again, a little tidbit, real quick, is like, so because this movie was so popular and everyone loves it, for Dapper Day and any vintage event, they'll be like, "Hey, where can I get some tweed? I want to be 20s." And I'm like, "Oh, it's like summertime," and they're like, "Yeah," and I'm like, "Tweed is not a fucking summer fabric."
Yeah.
And you see it at Dapper Day, people wear this shit, like they wear full tweed suits, they wear like fucking sweaters and everything, and I'm like, guys, they had cotton suits back then. They had linen.
Like, people talk all the time. It's like, how did people wear suits all the time? How did they stay cool? First of all, people did not wear suits all the time.
Yeah.
That's ridiculous. And second of all, lightweight fabrics. Because people wore a lot more suits, they had a lot more lightweight fabric suits that we don't, most guys don't necessarily have today.
Yeah, well, because today it's been replaced with like super wools or whatever.
Yeah.
And but the thing is, like, if you just take a look, at actual 1920s pictures, maybe you could do like Life magazine or whatever, you'll see people wearing like white suits, like regular guys, like not like rich people, like regular dudes wearing that, khaki suits. You'll see illustrations of it. Palm Beach was a thing back then, which again is like, the fabric of summertime of like the 30s, but it was still there back in the 20s. So keep that in mind as you're watching this film, that no one is wearing summer clothes except for Gatsby in a couple of scenes.
Anyway, so back to the synopsis.
Yeah.
Nick goes and visits his cousin, Daisy, who is played by Carey Mulligan.
Is that you, my lovely?
It's
I don't get that line, by the way.
There's so much, like, again, a lot of this dialogue is taken straight from the book. But like the scene where they first meet, or not first meet, but see each other is so, like, it's weird because it's like, here's how it begins. So Nick goes and sees his buddy Tom, who he like went to college with, and Tom's like, the Prince of Wales is
what
a sissy.
Yeah. It's like a little like throwaway line,
And then fucking just turns around and like runs full force and tackles
Life
him.
is something you dominate, Nick.
All-American. She made me who I am today. Forest Hills. Play the Prince of Wales. What a sissy. Life is something you dominate, Nick. If you're any good. Oh!
And then screams and tackles him through a door, and in the room there's Daisy and Jordan, and they're just like,
they're like writhing together in like a couch or something,
and they're like batting at like curtains like they're cats playing with a ball of yarn.
Yeah, and there's a quick scene, and again this goes kind of off topic, but like it cuts to Nick's reaction to like seeing this happen, and his eyes kind of like get bigger, like he's being turned on by it. Yeah, they dilate, and I'm like, that's his cousin, dude. Like, what the fuck?
Yeah, because it's like there's so many like weird flirty moments between him and his cousin, and I mean they kind of lampshade it when, you know, later when Daisy's like, "Oh my god, he really is in love with me."
Yeah.
But it's still weird.
So anyway, so he meets his cousin. He meets Jordan
Who's a
Belfort,
golfer.
the Wolf of Wall Street.
Jordan Baker, who's a
Yeah.
famous golfer and for whatever reason has a golf club with her.
Oh
Like,
yeah.
she's just carrying a golf club
Also,
around.
yeah, like, so in the book, I think Nick goes like, "I've seen you in magazines," and then in the movie they say that, but like she's reading the magazine that she's in, and it's kind of like
Yeah.
a subtle like thing, and I think the illustration like doesn't look like her or something, and I was like, it took me like a few views to be like, oh, that's what, okay,
That's the joke.
yeah, and so they have dinner, and Nick in this scene, he's wearing like a 3-piece brown tweed suit with a bow tie.
Belt back.
Belt back, and it's like, it's so hot. It's like fucking noon. It's I don't understand.
Like everyone is sweating.
Yeah.
Every other character is sweating.
Yeah, like all the windows are open. Like Daisy and Jordan are wearing like sleeveless dresses or whatever, which is like fine. Like Tom is wearing like this pretty dope like rugby shirt thing. Mm-hmm. But Nick is wearing a 3-piece brown tweed suit. It makes no sense.
And we'll talk about that more later. Anyway,
Yeah.
this is when Gatsby is first kind of introduced as like an idea.
What Gatsby?
Exactly.
Yeah.
What's funny?
We'll get to that later.
So because like Nick's like, "Oh, I live over in West Egg," and then Jordan says,
That's
"Oh,
where
then
Gatsby lives.
And then Daisy, just completely ignored by everyone, just goes, "Gatsby? What Gatsby?" And just everyone doesn't pay her any mind. Anyway, they have dinner, and then later, the next scene is like...
Oh, yeah, Nick takes Tom out to go...
Or Tom takes Nick.
Yeah, to go, like, to see his mistress for some reason. And so, like, I guess the train stops. They end up walking to the mistress anyway. And it turns out his mistress is
his
like...
mechanic's wife.
Yeah.
And
then
it's Rebel Alley. What's the actress's name?
Isla Fisher.
Isla Fisher.
And so then, I don't know the excuse he gives the mechanic guy, but, like, he takes both of them, Nick and his mistress.
I don't think he says anything to the mechanic. He just says to Isla Fisher,
"Oh, meet me here," or something.
"Meet me here. We'll get you the dog," or something.
Yeah, and so cut to Nick sitting outside a
They're
locked
banging.
bedroom, and they're just fucking. So I think I've seen this in the original 1974 film when I was doing some research, and like it's actually like a legit like mini like kickback party, you know, where it's like people like drinking cocktails, but in this one it's like a fucking like rager with like 4 people.
Pretty lame too. Yeah, because again, it's like 4 people.
Yeah,
and they're
so
in
like
this tiny
so like
room.
2 random people come in. It's like a photographer.
Well, no, there's 3 because there's Isla Fisher's sister. There's the random woman that just is super into tugboat.
And then
And
the fucking-
photographer.
who's like a pervert or something. Like he like Tom goes like, "Hey, take a picture of this, Bill," and like he slaps Isla Fisher's butt, and like it cuts to the photographer going, "Ugh," and like snaps a picture of it, and it's
He's
just
like grunting. It's
yeah,
weird.
it's weird. It's a weird. This movie's fucking weird, guys. You guys gotta watch it if you haven't seen it already. And so yeah, then Nick.
That's
gets, like,
when he
fucking,
first gets
like,
a taste for drink.
He's like, and I
Nick.
got roaring drunk. Then it plays "I Can't Stop," but like with like a random jazz trumpet.
Yeah, because there's like a clarinet or trumpet player, whatever, saxophone player on like the fire escape across the way.
By the way,
playing.
this movie was not filmed in New York, and so every time you see New York, it's just fucking CGI.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's bad.
it's a very like fake looking movie.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then so Nick goes home, drunk or whatever, and then he like says like, "I imagine seeing a guy watching me," and the next day, I guess Gatsby was watching him because he gives
He gets
him
an
a
invite.
like an invite to his party, so he goes, and it's like fucking like, you know, filled with people, and Nick
Yeah,
is
it's
the
a
only
huge party
one.
because it's like it's just open invitation, free drinks, free entertainment, whatever. So everyone in New York always comes down to see it.
Exactly. And then Nick, I guess we'll get into the fashion later, but, you know, I think he's like the only one who's not in a tuxedo.
No, I mean a lot of people aren't wearing
that's true.
tuxedos
Yeah,
because there's a lot
that's
of
right. You're
collegiate
right.
guys.
Right, yeah. So then he meets Jordan there, and I have to talk about this scene because this is this is the best thing I've seen. So
The one thing, okay, I just want to say the one thing that Gatsby movie has influenced Ethan and I most is we have like 13 inside jokes from the weird deliveries in this movie.
yeah, okay, because I think what they did was this movie was supposed to be a lot longer, and then they cut out a lot of it. I guess because of pacing issues or whatever. So he goes through a different montage of him seeing different guests or whatever, and then it finally culminates in like this music kind of crescendos where he's like looking out on a balcony toward the whole party, and then Jordan's coming up behind him like tap on the shoulder, and then she says, "I thought I might see you here," and then it cuts to him turning around and going, "Oh, hello," and it cuts back to Jordan. I don't know what she said. Yeah, but she says something, and then it cuts back to Toby or to Nick, and he goes, "It's like an amusement park." And the reason why we love it is because these bits of dialogue seem to not feed off each other. It's like they're two different takes, or like totally unrelated stuff.
Thought I might see you here.
Hello.
I remembered you lived next door.
It's like an amusement park.
Shall we?
Well, because that's another thing we should talk about. Again, I just don't like, I'm biased because I don't like Baz Luhrmann as a filmmaker, but the edits and the cuts in this movie, some of them are so abrupt and so weird. Oh, God.
So I went back and I looked at the book for this scene, and I think it's because, he was drunk and he couldn't hear Jordan, and I guess that's what they were trying to convey, but in this scene, there is, like, all the music cuts out.
Yeah.
And like,
yeah, because there's a scene later where it's like the music is quiet in the background, but it's like a close up on the jazz band and like the dancers, and you can very clearly hear the tapping of their feet, but the music is so quiet, and it's just
yeah, it's so bad. And they're like going, yeah, da, 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 and it's like there's like no music.
It's like there's a Bluetooth speaker on the corner next to them at like half volume.
But yeah, I mean, like that whole scene, like Nick's yelling, but then Jordan's like half whispering to him
because
so it's like it doesn't make any sense.
Also, the actress that plays Jordan is Elizabeth Debicki.
Yeah.
Debicki. And she is an Australian woman, and her American accent is very inconsistent because sometimes she sounds very like Southern, other times she's like kind of New
find
York.
You here.
Yeah, it's weird.
Yeah. So anyway, they start hanging out. There's a scene
Mr.
where they
Gatsby.
meet this. Yeah, they see this owl-eyed guy, and it's like, maybe I'm Mr. Gatsby or something. And if you look,
No, she just says Mr. Gatsby.
Oh yeah,
That's it.
whatever. And then like if you pause it, there's a scene. So like, Nick is like giving her like fuck eyes, kind of, and he's like, because he like collapses into like a chair, kind of drunk or whatever. It's really funny. You should pause it at that moment, by the way. But then they find out that like Gatsby, like a guy goes, like Gatsby doesn't exist because, as you find out later, Gatsby is
A construct.
Yeah, well, he's like a pseudonym or whatever. Then they go back outside for the fireworks, and at that exact moment that the fireworks go off, he's talking to some random dude who's like, "Oh yeah, I recognize you from the war," which I don't believe. But he goes like, "Oh yeah, I heard so much about this stuff about Gatsby. I heard he's like a fucking assassin." He goes like, "Well, I'm Gatsby." Then it fucking plays Rhapsody in Blue.
And he like lifts up the glass, and that's the thing that everyone.
Like the fucking money shot.
Yeah, seriously.
And then like Nick gets so flustered, he's like, "Oh, Mr. Gatsby, I didn't know it was
But
you."
my favorite part in that scene is like as the fireworks are going, and it like cuts back to Nick before he gets all flustered. He's like looking at him, and this is hard to convey in an audio medium, but he's like, "I like this."
Yeah, he's like his eyes
like,
are like kind of squinting, like yeah, this guy's a good guy or something,
This is great. This is incredible.
Yeah. And so he's like, "Hey, I gotta ask you a favor. We'll hang out tomorrow, but I gotta talk to Jordan real quick." And then it cuts like the next day. Gatsby shows up at his house, picks him up in his yellow car, whatever.
It's a vehicle.
Yeah, it's quite a road hog. And then he takes Gatsby to Gatsby takes him to a speakeasy where they see his friend Meyer Wolfsheim, who is a gangster.
And fix the World Series.
Yeah, and that's like, Gatsby keeps like running away to talk on the phone. They meet Tom, who is there for, I don't know, hooker reasons or something. I don't know.
It's a cool place to be.
Yeah, he's a real jazz hound.
Yeah.
Should we explain that one?
Yeah, so as they're there, like, it's showing how, like, Gatsby has so many connections and he just knows everybody. So it's like he's making jokes to, like, everybody at the speakeasy.
And then there's like a guy, I guess the police chief is there, or commissioner, and he's all like, "Hey, Gatsby, better lock you up!" And then like Gatsby goes, "You're a real jazz hound, commissioner," and he gives him a little like finger gun thing.
And then the guy's like, haha, that's
Bang bang.
me.
Yes, yeah, I'm the jazz hound. And so as soon as we see Tom, like Gatsby kind of disappears. And then what happens after that?
I think then it just, like, cuts back to, like, Jordan, and Jordan's like, oh, he wants to do Daisy. He wants to, like, bang her.
And he's like, "Oh shit!" And then on his way home, he runs into Gatsby, like waiting for him, like outside, like. And it's so funny because it's like, "Oh, I wasn't waiting for you. I was like looking at my house from your yard." And
By the way, do you want to hang out?
yeah. By the way, do you want to hang out and invite your cousin? Because I mean, you know,
No
what
big
time?
deal.
What time works for you? You know.
Yeah.
And then so the next day, it's like fucking raining, and Nick is wearing his green cardigan thing, and then Daisy comes in, but then Gatsby like chickens out. And he like hides outside in the
Yep.
rain, and so it catches Nick off guard.
Yeah.
And so
His
the room
cottage
is
is
filled
full
with like
of flowers.
flowers. Yeah, and
Yeah.
like Daisy walks into it, and like Nick's waiting outside, and all he hears is like Daisy gasp, and he's like, "Okay, good, they're gonna talk now." Then he walks in, and Gatsby's not there. And then
And he's just like, oh,
it's funny. And then Daisy gives him her hat and goes, "What's funny?" And instead of being like, "Oh, what's so funny?" Like, no, like she says it so matter of factly, almost bordering on like pissed off. Like,
what's funny?
yeah.
Would you?
That's funny.
What's funny?
Which is
And-
another one of our inside jokes.
Yeah, because it's just fucking ridiculous. The acting and the direction is just awful.
Because it's like also a lot of the things that become inside jokes is because there's like a zoom in on a character right as they say it, like a close up shot. And
It's
then
like
they
we
deliver
could
this.
Vine so much of this.
Oh
But
man, I miss
R.I.P.
Vine.
Vine. Yeah. And then Gatsby finally gets the balls to come in, and then he lets them. Nick lets them talk. Nick goes outside for a little bit in the rain like a fucking loser.
He's a cuck.
Yeah, he's got cousin cucked.
Yep.
And then he comes back inside. Gatsby's like, "Hey guys, let's like go back to my house and
I
continue
have
this."
a much better house.
Yeah, let's go. And like they go across the street, and it plays Lana Del Rey's song. While they
Young and
while they
Beautiful.
like try a fucking like automatic juicer thing or whatever.
Yeah, they
Um,
throw a bunch of shirts.
Yeah, they go on a barge and golf into the sea or something.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, they start like dancing at some point, and then Gatsby reveals that he saved all the letters like a fucking loser.
Yeah. Oh yeah, because I think we find this out earlier, but Gatsby and Daisy used to be a thing.
Well, that's what Jordan told him earlier.
Yeah. But then he got shipped off to war, right?
Yeah, he got shipped off to war. Then he couldn't talk to her. Daisy started to marry Tom, and then Gatsby came back, and it's like, oh,
Whoops.
yeah. And then I think at this point it cuts to, like, Nick recounting about later on in the film.
Yeah,
where
he tells
Gatsby
Gatsby's
tells
life
the whole
story. So
story,
he was
yeah.
born dirt poor in the Midwest.
And he kept
Um,
reaching out to the sky, literally, by
Yeah.
holding his hand out to the sky.
Yeah, it's really cringy. He meets by happenstance an old billionaire who
Who's
teaches
like-
him how to use the phrase "old sport."
Yeah, so like the old man is like, he's like, I guess he's drunk sailing by himself, and it's like a fucking storm. And Gatsby rows out to him, and goes like, "Sir, you're gonna hit the shoal, or whatever, the shore."
Yeah.
I don't know what he's saying.
I think
And-
he's saying "shoal."
Okay, shoal, and then in slow motion, the old man
Another
goes,
zoom up or close up.
the old man does not acknowledge what he says at all, and just simply says, "What do you think you're doing, old sport?" And it's like, oh, that's why he says it all the time.
And then it cuts back to Gatsby, and he's like, "Whoa!"
Yeah, like this is the guy I want to be with. And then
So that-
and then it
yeah,
cuts to like he's saying, "Okay, yeah, the billionaire raised him," and it cuts to him like tying a tie with a suit, and he goes, "Old sport," or something like that. And I'm like, what the fuck?
She looks well, doesn't she? Gatsby hoped to inherit Cody's fortune. Old sport.
It's ridiculous.
Yeah, and then I guess Yeah, then he
the
gets shipped
billionaire
out.
dies, he loses his like nest egg, like so he doesn't have access to that money anymore.
Decides to go into the war, comes back, and
Gets
then
like an officer's training program in Oxford.
yeah, and then yeah. So then he eventually hooks up with Meyer Wolfsheim and becomes like a rum runner or whatever you want to call it. And then Daisy and Gatsby just start like fucking like it's like just sex.
Yeah, all the time.
Yeah. And then eventually Leo Gatsby's like, "Hey, we should come clean up Tom and have you break up with him." And she's like, "Okay, I'll do it at dinner tomorrow." And so they all have like an awkward like lunch all together.
It's like during the middle of the heat wave and everyone's just sweating profusely, mostly because everyone besides Gatsby is wearing like winter weight clothes.
And then Tom is like he kind of already has an idea of what's happening, I guess, because like Nick won't tell him something or something like that. And then they almost like fight, like him and Tom, and then Daisy's like, "Let's go to the plaza." So like, okay, Daisy and Gatsby will drive in one car, and then Nick, Jordan, and Tom will be in another car. But then they'll take Gatsby's car.
Yep.
Which is weird. I mean, that's important for the story.
It's a fun game they like to play.
Yeah.
Car swap.
And so like on the way there, like Tom in Gatsby's car tries like stops at the mechanic store, and then he's like, "Yeah, I heard my wife was like having an affair, so I beat her, and she's not going nowhere now. We're gonna move somewhere else, like a farm."
You ain't going nowhere.
Yeah.
Spider-Man.
Bonesaw is ready. And so like Tom's like, "Oh shit, I'm gonna lose this piece of tang. I can't lose my other one." So they go to the plaza, and then they just fucking erupt at each other. And like Gatsby's like,
He starts screaming, and that's when Daisy is like, "Oh no, he's not cool."
yeah,
Like I think they literally use that line because he's not cool-headed. He loses his temper, and she's like, What's this? Who's this guy?"
yeah. This is not the nerd I fell in love with. There's also a part though where Gatsby kind of before he loses his cool, he says like, "Yeah, I actually was at Oxford, not as a student, but as a officer in training program, or post-war training, whatever." And like it cuts to like Nick going, "I wanted to pat him on the back for that one," which is stupid. But then later on, Gatsby loses his cool, and then Daisy's like, "I want to go home," and then so like Tom.
She also has a daughter this whole movie, by the way,
yeah.
that we never see.
And then so like Tom assumes he wins. He's like, "Gatsby, why don't you take my wife home?" And I'm like, "Wait, hold on, why? I don't get why."
What if he's into it?
He wants to get cucked.
Yeah.
And so on the way home, they go home first, and then Tom, Nick, and Jordan follow them, and then they find out that the mechanic's wife was run over by a yellow car. And it's like, oh shit, it was Gatsby. And then I guess Tom tells it to the mechanic, and so the mechanic is like, "I'm gonna fuck up this Gatsby guy." Nick gets back home, which is next to Gatsby's.
Yeah.
Sees
Gatsby's
Gatsby like
cleaning blood off his car.
Yeah, and he's like,
everything's cool.
Yeah, and he's like, "Gatsby, what the fuck, man? You just killed him." He's like, "No, it was Daisy, but I'm taking the fall for it because if they find out she did it, she's gonna go to jail or something, or she'll no, here I got it. She'll love me because of what I did," which is stupid.
Silly.
Yeah. And so then it says like that's when he told me everything. So instead of saving the story for that moment, he just tells us that, hey,
like
that thing
halfway
earlier,
through.
that's what we
Yeah.
did. And then it cuts to Gatsby dying, getting shot by the mechanic guy in his pool, and he's waiting for a phone call from Daisy because he thinks that Daisy's gonna leave Tom, but it turns out it was just Nick calling him to say what's up.
He's like, "Hey, dude, I know you've had a rough couple days. Let's hang."
Yeah, and so it sucks because like Nick hears him die over the phone, which is pretty sad if you think about it.
Yeah.
And then Nick runs into like Daisy later on with like Tom, and he's like,
They're like moving back to Chicago or something.
yeah, and then Nick's like, "You guys suck. Everyone sucks. You know what? This whole experience has made me lose faith and optimism in the world. Only Gatsby was hope, and rebellions are built on hope."
Yeah, we're rebels, aren't we?
Yeah.
Let's
And so I
rebel.
guess this whole framing device is like the doctor saying, "Hey Nick, why don't you like write down your thoughts on this whole thing? That's good therapy." And so the last shot is him like writing, like it's called Gatsby, and he's like, "No, wait a minute. The Great Gatsby.
Yep. Oh, also we forgot the whole like you can't repeat the past thing, but I mean that's like a big part of it. But
Sure.
yeah,
Anyway.
they have a conversation where Gatsby's like insists that you can repeat the past. That's it.
Yeah. It's a bad movie. I mean,
It's
again,
not great.
like the music is just bad. Like they didn't want to date the film, and yet this film is very 2013 because
Oh, God, yeah.
all they used was like Jay-Z and hip hop stuff, and there's nothing wrong with that. But whenever you use like pop music in a film, it's like, oh yeah, that's when that song came
Yeah,
out.
I remember that. I remember this song.
Yeah, so it didn't really work like that. And then of course the editing and the camera angles isn't really classic. Like if you want to see like a period film, like look at like Lincoln or even The Prestige, which is fiction, looks like a period film, like because it's shot dramatically. You know, this was like, you know, a lot of pans, a lot of zooms, and a lot of obviously alternate takes, considering how the dialogue doesn't
Yeah.
always match up. I just remembered one scene where when Nick's at the party, he asks a bartender, like, do you know where Gatsby is? And the bartender goes, Gatsby? I've never even heard no Gatsby. And if you look at the mouth, he's not saying that. Like, it's kind
No.
of like over the shoulder kind of thing. And, like, it doesn't match at all. And you can see that a lot during the film. Like, whenever people, like, whenever they talk to people. Another glaring one is when they go to the speakeasy and, like, Meyer Wolfsheim is getting, like, a haircut or a shave or something.
Yep.
And, like... So he goes, Meyer, and he puts his hand on his shoulder. Then it cuts to just Meyer turning around, no hand on his shoulder, and going, my boy. And it's just a
Like-
it's a weird cut. Like, it doesn't make
Yeah.
sense. Oh, my God. So, yeah.
Smells so good.
Yeah. Why does he say that? He, like, hugs Gatsby and goes, oh, smells so good.
He's a pervert.
Yeah. It sucks they got, like, a really well-respected Indian actor to, like, kind of become a meme.
Yeah.
And apparently there's a lot of, like, other deleted scenes. I think there's, like, you know, one where, like, he's getting, Myers, like ripping Gatsby a new one because of some other shipment thing. There's another scene where, like, Gatsby's dad comes back when he's, like, dead, but, like, they already showed his past or something. So, yeah, the movie is just really awful. I recommend it if you guys would really want to see a funny film with your friends.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean,
It's not like super. I mean, it's kind of fun to make fun of, but it's not like one of those famously bad movies.
it's not
it's
Plan
just-
9 from outer space.
Yeah, Plan 9 from Outer Space. It's just kind of mediocre, but it's still fun.
Yeah. I mean, I'd watch it again just because I know how many jokes I can make out of it.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I think we're going to take a quick break, and then we're going to get back and talk about the fashion of the film.
Yep. What you all came here for.
Yep, we'll be right back after this. Hi guys, welcome back to Style and Direction. We're talking about the Gatsby movie. Now we're going
this
to talk
time-
about the fashion.
Yeah, this time we're getting into the real meat of the episode.
And I'm vegan. No, I'm not.
He's not vegan. He doesn't
No.
even drink coffee though.
No. So, yeah, if you guys survived that recap. you know.
Yeah, I mean, if you have a book report coming up,
Or, you know, if you're, again, these are kind of built for me and Spencer. We're always in our car, and we're driving everywhere all the time.
yeah,
so.
I can't listen to podcast or music when I'm in traffic. It has to be podcasts. I
Yep,
don't know
me
why.
too. And
Yeah.
my commute is
Mostly
god awful.
traffic. Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, let's go through the stuff now. So Nick is the character I think who has like the most costume changes. Just
He's
because
the main character,
He's the
makes
main
sense.
character. Yeah. And in the blog post that we're gonna release alongside this, they decided to give him kind of like an Ivy kind of thing, kind of a style.
He is the author surrogate for F. Scott Fitzgerald, and as we mentioned earlier in the episode, F. Scott Fitzgerald was like, you know, Ivy wasn't really a term back then to refer to clothing, but he was like pre-Ivy, like trad. He wore a lot of Brooks Brothers sack suits, stuff like that.
CBDs, stuff
Yeah,
like
yeah.
that. Yeah. And so they they give him a lot of that kind of stuff, which is why you see him mainly in terms of shirts. He's usually in an OCBD or a club collar shirt, which I guess is kind of accurate,
But the weird thing about a lot of his OCBDs, they have contrast buttons, which make them look very cheap and kind of like mall fashion.
Yeah, you probably know what we're talking about, where you see like like the fake wood buttons on shit, to make them like a hipster shirt or whatever. And he wears those stuff with a lot of. He wears a lot of separates, There are a few times he wears suits, but most of the time it's like like it's like khaki trousers with like a gray jacket or something like that, or
like a lot of odd vests, which is something that most of the characters wear. Which I don't think odd vests were nearly as big as this movie makes them out to be.
No, they're not. I mean, I really was into it because of this movie. Like in my head, I thought, oh, if you wear like a suit with like a brown vest, you're automatically 20s. Where
Because something I noticed in my rewatch tonight, so his outfit at the party, like the first party he goes to, is very like prep. Like he's wearing a navy blazer with white pants. He has like a prep stripe bow tie. His vest is like chalk stripe, like a navy chalk stripe.
Oh, I didn't notice that.
Yeah, it's weird.
Yeah, and you're wearing that with white pants and a blue blazer. That doesn't really work. There are some times I think when he's wearing like a full suit where he has a vest. I think like the first scene when he's wearing that brown belt back. And on this note, he wears a few belt backs in the film. I think at least 2 of them. And
a lot of them look very like 60s or 70s rather than 20s.
They're not. I mean, they're not bad. A lot of people send me belt backs on like Instagram, and while they're a cool detail, I like the 30s ones because 30s I think have more intricate backs and they have a thinner belt, which I think makes them look better. Because 60s and 70s ones have a wider belt, which I think takes up too much room. And then also, I think
usually just have like one pleat at the back.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So he has one of those. He's got a few with like buttons on like the belt for like decoration, which again was like a 60s, 70s thing as opposed to a 30s or 20s, whatever you want to call it. Also, belt backs weren't that big in the 20s. I mean, they obviously had them, but they kind of
a lot of things, especially in 1922, a lot of jackets were fully belted. So it wasn't just the back was belted.
So think like a Norfolk, like or a hunting suit, but like regular suit wise or with knickers or something. Also, no one wore knickers in the film, which I think is really weird. But again, if we want to get into the whole like period accuracy of it, again, a lot of them look more 30s, I guess, because it's like a lot more suits and separates as opposed to belted jackets.
Yeah, because I mean, early 20s fashion, like early 20s style was weird.
Yeah, we always call it like the weird stuff whenever we talk about it in a blog post or in a lecture. Yeah, because everything was cut
like really long. The button stance was
super high armholes, narrow shoulders. Super slim pants that are cropped. People wear boots a lot, dress boots as opposed to like dress shoes. High button stances, long skirts in terms of jackets. Like 4 pockets on 4 patch pockets.
A lot of things were like kind of like the jackets were cut like kind of cut away. Like
exactly. Again, it was very Edwardian if you want to think of it that way. Like more in common with late 1910s or whatever than what you would normally think of when you think of 20s. And when people think of 20s, they normally think of like early 30s for some reason.
Yeah, because it's like this is something we go into in the article, but like 20s parties first became a thing
in like the 50s.
Yeah, in the 50s, like because this is like when people first started collecting vintage. This like hip couple in New York and like probably the Village started throwing these 20s themed parties, and so people would either wear stuff that they found in like their parents' attic, or they would just make stuff from it. And that's where we get the idea of like fringe dresses for women, like these very loud striped jackets existed for men, but it's like not everyone wore them, stuff like that.
Yeah, because I think even in college stuff, like the regatta blazers weren't really a big thing later as like you move on. I think they kind of got replaced with like patch crest jackets as opposed to like the regatta stuff. So people found those, and you see it in pictures or yearbooks of like your parents or whatever, and so like, oh yeah, let's do stuff like that, and even movies too. Like movies would kind of have like a comical version of the 20s, which is like again movies of the 50s, so like only like 30 years ago.
Yeah, because it's like that's like if we made like
a 90s or 80s,
yeah, 80s or 90s, it's like.
And if you want a good example of that, like think of like Wolf of Wall Street. I think that's like a really good, it's like one of the first ever like 90s films, But anyway, so yeah, it's not fully accurate, and there's a lot of things wrong with that. But if we're not going to talk about that, we can just talk about the actual details.
Yep.
So again,
I'm looking at the draft of the blog post right now for
there you
photo
go.
references.
There you go. So yeah,
Should we talk about like the first outfits we see him in?
Sure. Yeah. So the first outfit again we see him in, I think I mentioned this, is that the herringbone
It almost
like
looks
tweed
like
jacket, but then it also, the main like full outfit we see is him wearing the 3-piece brown suit at the little lunch thing that he does with like Daisy and Tom or whatever.
Yeah, because the first suit he wears almost kind of looks like the SJC like Vaughn work suit. It looks very kind of like rough, and I think it's either herringbone or just like kind of a weird stripe.
Right. To me it looks kind of like something from like not Double RL, but like Ralph Lauren Purple Label or something. Because like it's 2-button, which again wasn't uncommon in the 20s, but it just looks like
1929. Uncommon.
Yeah, but it looks very modern, which again is the issue with the whole film. It just looks like people were dressing today, but like back then or whatever. And so he wears that with a club collar shirt and a red rep stripe bow tie. Yeah, something like that. And I think I'm not sure if I mentioned in the blog post, but he is wearing boots.
Wait, we're not talking about the same thing, because I was talking about him in the sanatorium.
Oh shit! Yeah, you're
talking about him yeah. So he's wearing like a herringbone tweed jacket with just a plain brown vest. He has a club collar that has the contrasting buttons and like a brown geometric bow tie.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's
with a boater. Like he wears a bunch of tweed suits with a boater, which
makes no fucking sense.
I mean,
choice. they probably look at like pictures of people wearing boaters, but like those are obviously
because like
not summer suits.
In 1922, like people would literally like get mad at you if you're wearing a felt hat. Well, I don't think that's true, but I know that there was a thing called like the straw hat riots, where someone was wearing a straw hat too early in the year, and then like people would beat you up. It was like people got kind of that was important.
I mean, how do you guys feel if like someone wore like a beanie in like summertime? Like it makes no sense.
Yeah.
So I mean, yeah, if you want to go back, I mean, he is wearing like some stuff at the sanitarium, kind of like disheveled or whatever. But yeah, he wears a brown suit when he goes to meet Daisy, and then when he goes out to hang out with Tom to go see his mistress and just kind of get self-cucked or whatever you want to call it.
That's when he's wearing like a full suit with the brown vest.
Yeah, with a flat cap, and then later on, when he hangs
he's wearing a boater.
That's right, yeah. But then when he goes to hang out with Gatsby the next day, though, he's wearing a flat cap with like a gray suit this time, with like a dark.
I do like his outfit in this scene, because he has like a full 3-piece, I think. He has like a club collar with like a micro check shirt. It's like contrast collar. With with a very 30s looking striped tie.
And yeah, honestly, like a lot of the stuff isn't that bad in terms of like composing the outfit. It's just kind of like the details that kind of that don't really hold up.
Yeah.
But I think we both agree that the one where he's hanging out with Gatsby, I think is his best look. Although the brown tweed 3-piece with the bow tie isn't half bad either.
Yeah. Another thing we should just talk about is the fit of everything.
Oh yeah.
Because this is something we're gonna get more into, I think, when we talk about Gatsby. Because you point out in the article, it looks like everything is too tight, but at the same time very boxy on him.
Yeah.
So, but like everyone's pants are so tight. It's ridiculous.
There's a picture I include when he's about to get off the train with Tom, where you can see like kind of like at least a little past his knee, and it looks like he's fucking like have painted on pants.
It's ridiculous.
There's no crease at all. And I mean the 20s were slim. It wasn't like that. Like they were probably as slim as like the 60s were, like not too bad. Like more like mod, I guess.
And also, like, speaking of the pants, everyone's wearing their pants like too long, which is, again, 20s pants were very cropped, and that was a hip thing in 2013. So I don't know why they would say, "Oh, we should do that."
Yeah, you'll see it more with Gatsby, I think, because Gatsby has a lot more like full outfits or full shots of him. But other than that, I think Nick is pretty cool. I think he's probably close to what Spencer and I wear today, like Ivy, a lot of separates, just without the odd vests.
Mm-hmm.
There's one I want to point out where, in the I guess the final scene or the big fight that they have at the plaza, he's wearing like the vest and jacket of like a herringbone or some sort of tweed jacket kind of thing, and it's like pleated patch pockets, which is cool, and a shark gill belt back in the back, which is actually not bad.
Yeah.
But he's wearing them with like linen pants that are close to the same shade as the jacket, but they're not. It just looks weird. Like it's like brown on like tan.
Yeah, like
which is
slightly lighter brown.
Yeah, and it's weird, you know.
But I mean, the jacket is beautiful. Like
Yeah, the jacket's pretty good. I mean, it's very 70s, but I mean, it's a good kind of 70s.
Uh-huh.
And then he wears that for a lot of the film. We can talk about all the tuxedos later on. There's also one where, so if we backtrack a bit, Nick and Tom are drunk because they're having a little kickback at Tom's private apartment or whatever.
Yeah.
And then, like, Nick imagines seeing himself outside. And he's wearing... Okay, in the blog post, I wrote it originally as, like, it looks like a 60s suit to me because the lapels are kind of small. And it's cut, like, to have both buttons. Like, it's a 3-button suit and the top 2 buttons are fastened.
Yeah.
And it doesn't look 20s to me. It looks very 60s. But, like... Yeah, it's just a good example.
I still think it could be a triple patch pocket sack suit, but because I don't see any darts on the side. But yeah, it does look pretty 60s. Like if, with a bow tie, like if you took off the boater, it could be Tobey Maguire in like in a period piece set in like 1959.
Yeah, exactly. And again, he's fucking wearing a boater with like a tweed suit, which makes fucking no sense. We can move on to Tom now.
Oh god, I hate Tom's looks. He's my least favorite.
Tom
fashion.
is so bad. I don't know how you could get like the corporate guy wrong, but it's so bad. So again,
the costume
Tom
director gave him this thing. It's like, okay, we're gonna use a lot of double-breasted vests, but all his vests are cut in the weirdest way possible.
Yeah, it's like the closure is so high, like the vest
right at the knot.
The V of the vest ends right at the knot.
All the buttons are so close together, too, because, like, double-breasted vests existed in the 20s, but the buttons were spaced like they would be on a jacket, so they were, like, several inches apart. Like, on the vest that he's wearing, they're, like, all less than an inch apart.
It looks like an Edwardian jacket or a fucking steampunk costume or something. And, you know, if they were approaching this as, like, oh, how about we make it good style, not period, they obviously didn't do that for him because, they really... look like they want to make it look old.
Yeah.
But it's just bad. He never wears his double-breasted suits, like, buttoned. It's always unbuttoned. And, weirdly enough, it's an odd vest. It's not even, like... He's not wearing 3-piece suits.
Because it's, like, one of the scenes we see him in, like, what is it? He's wearing a... striped jacket.
Yeah, okay. So in the blog post, when I was writing about this, I'm going clearly just like off of the screen caps, and so sometimes you don't see the full outfit because it's a lot of torso shots or whatever, and so I assumed he's wearing a pinstripe suit with an odd vest because that's what you see. But then I was randomly looking up like behind the scenes pictures, and there's a picture of him like walking offset or like off camera with Toby like drinking like a bottle of water, and it turns out he's not wearing an odd vest. It's an odd jacket. Yeah. His pants and vest are the same like navy blue, but the jacket is pinstriped. Just a jacket. It's fucking redonkulous.
It's redonkulous.
Like I don't know how you think that's good.
Yeah.
So, yeah, he's always wearing, like, blue pinstripe suits or navy blue suits with an odd vest that's always cut the same way, double-breasted, super close together, high buttoning stance, super high gorge or whatever you want to call it. He wears that with a boater, like always.
Yeah.
And then there's a little tidbit where the lining of his suit has like skull and crossbones to kind of like reference the frat that he and Nick were in, and that's kind of cool. I mean, we never see it in the film, but I mean,
It's
that's
a cool detail. Like they,
Yeah.
with the extra mile, I guess.
Right. And yeah, he doesn't really change his outfits that much throughout the film. I mean, it's always kind of variations on a theme.
Mm-hmm.
I think he has like 2 suits because you see like the same, stuff over and over again.
I think in the party scene, he's wearing like a horizontal striped shirt because that's the only time you get to see like most of his shirt that's not being covered up by a vest. And I think it's like a horizontal striped shirt. Oh, also a weird detail about all his shirts. They're not detachable collar, but all of them are fastened with collar studs, which he would basically only wear if you were wearing a detachable collar shirt. Like a collar stud is just a little metal thing that you would slip in the.
How do you know that? I didn't know that.
Because also in the party scene, he has his shirt unbuttoned, and instead of just a top button, it's a collar stud. But again, his collar is attached. It doesn't come off. But it's weird. Yeah.
Okay. So next we have Gatsby, who is, I guess, he's the dandy of the film. I don't know if the book calls him a dandy as such, but I know that they kind of reference that he's wearing a pink suit or something like that.
Yeah, he dresses a little bit louder and bolder than everyone else. He has the most varied wardrobe.
And based on the compositions of the outfits, it's clearly like a throwback to the 1974 film, at least in terms of the white suit. I think actually the white suit was actually named in the book too. I mean,
yeah,
like they say he's wearing like a white suit with a silver shirt and a gold tie. They don't say anything about a fucking brown vest though, which makes no sense, but whatever. So a majority of the time when you see Gatsby, he's in like the window, and I think he's wearing like a tuxedo all the time.
His tuxedo is so bad, but I think we'll get into it later.
We'll get to the tuxedos later on. But so his first real outfit is like a brown window pane suit. It doesn't look as heavy.
It looks like, I think we talked about it might be like a silk linen blend or something.
Yeah. But so all of his suits are cut the same way. So like, if Nick does a lot of odd stuff, Tom wears double-breasted vests and double-breasted suits. Gatsby wears really slim peak lapel jackets with 3 buttons, a waistcoat, and pants that are frog-mouthed pockets, which are like, if you think of frog-mouthed pockets, detail.
It's 70s. A lot of the characters
think of it as like jeans.
Pockets.
Think of it as like jeans, like the kind of they go on the front of your pants as opposed to the side. So yeah, all of the suits are the same way. So the first time you see him, he's wearing like a brown window pane suit with a like checked point collar shirt with like an eyelet. So like, instead of having a collar clip that Spencer and I wear, his actually goes through the holes and then you fasten like the ends on it. And he's wearing like a deco-ish tie, which it looks more like a 30s 40s tie. But the biggest thing is that his tie is woven and not like a brocade or anything. And in those days, if you had kind of like a check tie like that, it was almost always a brocade. Like, I think Nick gets a pass because matter ties were a thing for a long time. But for Gatsby, I feel like if he was really a dandy, he would be wearing like a brocade silk tie.
Yeah.
So you see that, and then so he wears the same cut suit for the tea party, where he's wearing a white suit, but instead of a 3-piece, he's wearing a brown odd vest, with which color is echoed in like an olive pocket square, which is fucking weird.
Just the weirdest shoes I've ever seen.
Yeah, it's like a spectator shoe, but they reverse the colors. Yeah, so like the part that would normally be brown, no wait. What is it, Spencer? It's like...
So I'm looking at it right now, and yeah, the parts that would normally be brown are white, and everything else is like... It kind of looks like gray or maybe like olive suede. It looks like very fashiony shoes that you could get for
they look
cheap
like
on...
they look like, if you look up like, dance shoes, like that's what you would get.
Or if you go to like a nicer shoe repair place, they'll usually also make shoes, and they'll have like really weird examples of the crazy stuff they can make like that.
Yeah, so bad. So yeah, it's made of linen, because he gets wet. I mean, he goes out into the rain, and it
It's
it kind of
see-through.
gets see through. So like that's kind of a cool detail that they actually kept it into like a a
Yeah.
summer appropriate fabric.
Mhm.
But I mean, okay, so this outfit I think is the most iconic. I mean, I wore variations of this.
That was like my favorite outfit in the movie.
It's super dandy, and honestly, if he just didn't have the vest and maybe like change the tie or something, it would be better.
Mm-hmm. I know I made a Facebook status like, man, I just saw the Gatsby movie. I really want a white suit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, it's and he does a weird thing where like he always fastens the top two buttons, and then before he sits down, he unfastens the top button and then sits down. Like,
But
so
the
it's
middle
only
one is the one that would straight. So.
Yeah, and in that scene, you can just see how tight it is on him.
Mm-hmm.
Like it's like again, like it's like they cut the body so super tight and close fitting, but it looks uncomfortable.
Yeah.
And because the lapels are so small, it looks boxy because there's a lot of chest.
Yeah. Because so peak lapel suits in the 20 again, they're not going for accuracy, but peak lapel suits in the 20s typically had a little bit more body to the lapel. Like they
Yeah.
were slightly wider at the bottom and kind of tapered up, which I think is, I do not like very slim peak lapels. I don't think they look good.
No, they do not. Again, for me, it's because they show too much body if they're too slim. Like, yeah. And then also, I'm looking at this picture. So his pockets are always hacking, so they're slanted, which is weird. But yeah, so he wears that, and then when they have their like kind of their night or afternoon night of fun, where they're like tossing shirts and
Yeah.
recording each other on like a shaky portable camera. Gatsby changes into like this shadow stripe shirt, which is like, it's like brown with like, it's like tan with like a little bit darker tan as a stripe, of like a block stripe. They're trying to evoke like a Breton stripe shirt, like
Yeah.
the classic blue and white one, but it looks like something from Forever 21. And then Nick wears one where it's like multi-stripe but only in the chest area, and
But it
that definitely
continues
looks
to
like
the
something from like
sleeves.
the Gap or something.
Yeah. Because I mean,
And
I
it's
know that like way long ago, you got like an actual like 1920s or 30s sweater, and you like wore this outfit, right?
Yeah, I wore like a boat neck sweater with like chinos.
Because I mean,
And-
again, it's not a bad look. Like it's a good summer look, but
The execution and details just
Yeah.
aren't right. And then of course they have that party, which we'll get to in a second. But the last outfit Gatsby wears, other than the swimsuit, is a pink 3-piece. So he actually wears a full 3-piece this time, cut the same way, slim peak lapels, hacking pockets, but it's made of like a pink pinstripe linen. And I actually like this one a lot.
me
I mean,
too. It's a cool suit. It's a cool
Yeah.
fabric.
Yeah, I mean, I'd wear it if I had it. Obviously, change the details, but it's a good example of like a pink suit that's not overtly pink, because I guess it looks more white and like light.
Yeah, it's more subtle than like bright pink suits.
Yeah, and then he wears that with his eyelet spear point ish kind of shirt with the collar pin, and kind of like a block stripe pink tie,
Yeah,
which
like
I think is
burgundy
really
with
cool.
pink. I would wear
Yeah.
it.
Yeah, I'd wear that tie too. Yeah, that's probably his best one. And then he wears like white. I think he wears the same shoes with this one. But yeah, if you look at like this scene in the film, you'll notice like his pants. You'll see it actually in a full shot where like it's like really skinny, and then they kind of like they look like jeans. Honestly,
Yeah.
it's not good.
Yeah,
in
because
terms of
again, the
fit.
pants are way too long.
Yeah.
Or well,
And
not necessarily. They're not super long, but they just do not like.
they don't hang well. There's no
Yeah.
drape to him at all. And then and then he dies.
Shame.
And then he wears they put him in his white suit.
It's a full 3-piece this time.
Yeah, so no brown vest. Yeah, he wears the same like silver shirt and yellow tie for his funeral or his wake or whatever you want to call it.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's like the main characters. I mean, then they do have. Let's talk about the party, because you get to see some other characters who are well dressed. So they all wear 3-button tuxedos.
Oh God, they're all so bad. A lot of them are
Yeah.
notch lapel, or they have a very skinny peak lapel.
Some of them wear like pleated shirts. Gatsby's bow tie is weird,
It has like white piping on the edges.
which is no.
Uh-huh.
Their vests, like basically the tuxedos are cut like suits,
Mm-hmm.
and that's not.
Because tuxedos, there's daytime vests and there's evening waistcoats. Evening waistcoats are cut significantly lower. They usually only have 2 or 3 buttons.
They're U-shaped.
Yeah, but no one, unless they're wearing white tie, no one in the movie is wearing those vests for the most part.
Don't know what that was.
Yeah, it was a cough.
Yeah, that's what it was.
Uh-huh.
But yeah, so like it's weird that the extras are kind of they're wearing more interesting or even more vintage looking things than the main cast.
Oh,
which
also,
is-
we should note that according to a DVD extra that I watched, there was like no vintage in the film. Like everything was made for expressly for the film.
Which is weird because if that's the case, they really did a good job in some of the extras because for the party scenes, a lot of them are wearing like white tie like tailcoats with the correct period
And some of them have
vests or
like the
whatever.
vest they're wearing have like very subtle stripes or patterns on it, which is something that you saw a lot in the 1920s.
My 30s tuxedo has a evening vest that's double breasted, and it definitely has that, like kind of like a jacquard ish kind of weave to it. And then you compare that with the main characters who are all wearing like what look like just suits with satin lapels.
They look like tuxedos that you can get like
At
from
Menswear House.
Exactly, yeah.
Yeah. And then also at the parties, you'll see a lot of regatta blazers and cream trousers.
Because it's supposed to be college kids, like that's collegiate style.
And a lot of people love those outfits too.
Uh-huh. I mean, to be honest, at least the ones that Brooks Brothers released, I don't think they're that bad. Like, I especially like the navy blue one with just the piping on the edges.
Oh yeah, we'll get to the official releases in a
Uh,
second.
let's talk. So since we're talking about side characters, let's talk about Meyer Wolfshire's outfit.
Oh boy, so he's a gangster, and so they get he's a gangster, and they give him like a double-breasted suit because he's supposed to be a gangster, which again really wasn't a thing until like the 30s and 40s, where you get the kind of classic double-breasted suit because in the 20s double-breasted suits looked a lot different.
Yeah.
Especially early ones.
Mm-hmm.
They don't really have the boxy shape that you would normally associate them with. But that's what Meyer's wearing. It's wearing like a powder blue pinstripe, 4-on-2, so there's no decorative chest buttons.
Yeah.
And then
the
he
button
has like
stance seems pretty low.
yeah, it's super low, which makes him look kind of top heavy. And then he's got slanted pockets with a slanted ticket pocket.
And I think they're like button pockets. They give him some like jazz suit or rah-rah suit details,
Which
suits.
were a like kind of like a novelty suit of the day.
Yeah, with a lot of like, again, just kind of weird details. Google it, it's fun. But it just ends up looking like a 60s does 20s suit.
Yeah, I mean, in general, all these suits feel like there are a lot of 2013 Indochino suits that people just had fun with their customizations.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, so Meyer's wearing that. He wears that with like a Panama, but like the Panama shaped like a fedora, which was a thing. Yeah. He has like a long point collar with an eyelet and a tooth tie pin.
Which isn't practical.
Yeah. No, I mean, in the book, he's like cufflinks, which is like,
more practical.
yeah. So that's Meyer. There's another character I wanted. There's my favorite is like Ewing Clipspringer.
Uh-huh.
Now he's like a random character. I don't even think he's mentioned in the books. I think he's just like mentioned as like a random like party goer or whatever.
Yeah.
But in the film, they make him like Gatsby's organist
He lives in his house.
just to play organ.
And he also seems kind of like a pervert because he's so into the organ.
Oh yeah, and he's like, yeah, his scene is like him like just like fucking pounding those keys, and he's wearing like those Harold Lloyd like circle glasses with a like what I'm assuming is a white tie like tailcoat thing, and a fucking dope like colorful scarf.
Yeah.
Which looks like something that Berg and Berg made or Drake's would make, and it looks kind of cool. It makes him look very artsy.
Uh-huh.
And speaking of perverts, there is one. You can get to see the weird photographer guy that we mentioned during the film, who really loves taking pictures of people fucking or something.
Oh, yeah.
He's wearing like a weird multi-striped jacket, which I guess they must have found vintage fabric for or something. Because there's no way people still make that. And it's like orange pinstripe, but in between that, there's like red dotted stripes.
Because the jacket he's wearing, it looks like it's cut. It's cut very like 40s.
Yeah, like it's a lot boxier. There's a lot of shoulder padding into it, you know. And he's wearing that with like a fucking brown striped vest of all things. It's
Oh boy. Also, isn't he wearing like a kimono when he first walks in?
oh yeah, that's right. He is wearing a kimono.
He's wearing a kimono over his suit.
Talk about Japanese inspiration, am I right, guys?
Ame Tora.
Yeah, but I mean, overall, if we're gonna go to our final thoughts about the film and the fashion,
We can talk about final thoughts and then what lessons you can learn and what you should avoid.
yeah, this whole film reeks of like 2010s fashion. You know, a lot of slim suits, no really good tailoring. The jackets feel like they're like one size too small. And then it goes into this whole idea of like, oh, if it's vintage, it's just random stuff mixed together. You know, let's wear odd vests with everything.
Yeah.
Everything deserves a boater, even if it's fucking, you know, a summer or a winter suit, I mean. Also, on that note, Nick wears a boater throughout the whole film and like a flat cap at one point, and then at the end of the film, he's wearing a Homburg, which is like way more period accurate.
Yeah.
Where did that come from?
Who's to say?
And if he went to college in Yale, which is in the East Coast, why doesn't he have summer clothing? Or why does he only have winter clothing? Like Yale isn't that like different of a climate than New York City.
No, I don't.
He should know.
Yeah,
He should be prepared.
he should.
But yeah. So, I mean, there are a couple of good outfits and some good ideas, like the white suit, you know, if you just change the details a little bit. Like, there's nothing wrong with a pink suit, you know, a double breast suit, pinstripe, whatever. But it's like they were adding details for the sake of adding details, and it just doesn't work.
And again, like a lot of Nick's outfits, like Ethan and I would wear variations of. Obviously, not in the summertime, but it's like he has some cool jackets, whatever. Like,
Right.
he has some nice ties, cool, like, okay shirts.
Right. I think, you know, at the end of the day, this film is largely responsible for every single vintage outfit that people make that don't know what vintage style is, and all the bad outfits at Dapper Day. And, of course, you know, if that's what you want to wear because you love the film and you just want to do it, like, that's fine. But a lot of people get really defensive about it sometimes. Or they think, hey, no, this is what was in the Gatsby movie. This is correct. This is what the 20s looked like.
Yep.
Like, no, that's not. No.
Not really.
Yeah, and it ends up making them look overtly dandy and overly, again, mixing stuff that shouldn't really go together. Or
Yeah.
being just straight up impractical. You know, like, yeah, I want to be 20s. I'm going to wear a tweed suit on Dapper Day and walk around Disneyland in like 100-degree heat.
Not worth it.
Yeah, no, not worth it. So, ultimately, I think you guys can watch the film. It's fun, you know, if you really like, again, making fun of bad films. And fashion-wise, there are a couple good stuff if you find it.
You have to dig deep. Just kidding. I
Yeah.
mean, there's not that many outfits in the movie.
Yeah, I mean, yeah. It's kind of like a thing you just kind of gotta watch, because it's like the film that really triggered the tail end of the menswear renaissance.
Yeah.
You know, if Mad Men started it, I think it died with Gatsby, and now it's kind of like, you know, we're back into the whole streetwear, which is still cool.
Yeah.
Before we close out, let's talk a little bit about the merchandise for the film.
Oh, yeah. So Brooks Brothers did all the costumes for the men, and they also released a bunch.
Like a little collection.
Yeah.
You know, I think they have like Nick's tweed jacket.
I don't think they have any of Nick's tweed stuff. They have like some of his shirts, but they have a lot of Gatsby's suits. So they
Yeah.
have the brown one, they have the white one, and they have the pink one.
And they don't look at all like they're in the film.
No, because the waists are really low on theirs, and because Gatsby is also wearing decently high waisted pants.
Yeah, they do. They do give him high waisted pants.
But the ones that they released are like very, very low waisted. Like they have photos of like vests being worn with everything,
And you can just
the
see
waistband below the vest.
You can see the
bad.
whole shirt. Yeah.
Yeah, everything's 2-button rather than 3-button.
They also, instead of having, I think they did have his shoe, like Gatsby shoes, but like the normal way of doing spectators.
They also
And
had
they
like
also
a pair
had-
of two-tone loafers that look very 50s.
Yeah, they look like rockabilly shoes. And lots of guys bought them. I mean, when I searched up Great Gatsby Brooks Brothers, like there's a whole bunch of pictures of like old Instagram of like guys who are wearing all the stuff, like the
And
regatta
again,
blazer.
I have the shirt. I have the eyelet white shirt, and in retrospect, I wish I had gotten the blue shirt because I would wear that a lot more.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean it's interesting to see, a film like this iconic that people still look back on and still love watching just to get an idea of what the 20s seem to be looking like, and also like have a film that has like a tie-in with merchandise, because you don't really see that anymore.
Yeah.
Like there is no like Lincoln collection or something,
Yeah,
and Lincoln did shop at Brooks
Because the only
Brothers.
other thing I could think of is like Mad Men, which also had a Brooks Brothers collection and had a
And a
Banana
Banana Republic, yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
But there's not really a lot of fashion films,
Well,
that are
actually,
coming
doesn't
out or
Hot
whatever.
Topic do like collections for like every movie? That
Oh,
comes
that's
out?
true. Yeah, I mean they had little stuff like you can get like Newt Scamander's coat or whatever. And actually, that movie I think is way better costume than this one. Maybe we'll get into that in the future one.
Maybe.
Yeah. But yeah, that's the Great Gatsby, guys. I hope you've
Great
enjoyed
Gatsby.
this kind of review and conversation about the film. As always, you can find more detailed descriptions and pictures of the film on our blog, Street Expressa. But yeah, hopefully we get to do this more often in between interviews with our friends
because, I mean,
and stuff.
We both like movies where there are clothes in it.
Yeah, I mean we've seen a whole bunch. We could talk about La La Land again, or
Still one of your most popular blog posts.
yeah, that one, and also Murder on the Orient Express was a big one. But yeah, we can always go back and stuff because we've been wanting to do Gatsby for a long time. Because again, this was really formative in our menswear journey and kind of started this on this whole thing.
And now we're like, ew.
Yeah, I think that's a sign of true. Like, I think I really want to do Gangster Squad next because that was kind of like what got me into like actually collecting vintage as opposed to dressing vintage inspired. And that movie is also a hoot.
Yeah.
So.
Oh, my
and a lot
boxing
of-
days are over.
Yeah. What's funny?
Yep.
Yeah. But yeah, we hope you've enjoyed this. If you want to follow us on Instagram, there is Style and Direction all spelled out. But my personal one is at Ethan M. Wong.
I'm Spencer DSO.
If you guys could leave a review on iTunes. That would really help us out and get more people to listen to it. Or you can just send it to your friends and just say, hey, there are these two nerds who make dumb jokes and talk about clothes.
Yeah, we're trying
Which
to
we
get
would-
back on the every 2 week schedule. Sorry, this summer again. I'm working 2
Yeah.
jobs and I have an internship. I was out of the house for a month. It's been kind of busy, but I think we can get back into it.
Yeah, definitely. And if you guys have any, suggestions at all, any guests, or if you guys want to be on it, and want to talk to us, send us an email at styleanddirection@gmail.com, or just, it's probably easier if you just direct and DM us on Instagram, because no one really emails us anyway.
No.
But yeah, and if we're gonna, oh, that was a bug.
Oh
Get out
no.
of here. Yeah. Sorry, there's a bug.
Let the record show there was a bug in here.
Yeah. Get the fuck off me, you fucking bitch.
Okay.
Sorry. It flew back on me.
Gross.
What's a good sign off from the film?
Oh man, smells so good.
Smells so good. We'll see you in the next one.
Bye bye.
Bye bye.